Imagine a world teeming with life. Bizarre creatures roam vast forests, and sprawling reefs glitter beneath the waves. Now, picture it all gone, wiped out. Not by an asteroid, but by something far more sinister, rising from deep within the Earth itself. This wasn't just an extinction event. It was the day the planet almost died. This is the story of the Great Dying. 252 million years ago, during the Permian period, life was thriving. On land, strange, mammal-like reptiles called synapsids were the dominant animals. Creatures like the formidable gorgonopsid, a saber-toothed predator, and the bulky, plant-eating scutosaurus covered in bony armor. Walked the supercontinent of Pangaea. The oceans were a kaleidoscope of activity, filled with trilobites, sea scorpions, and vast coral reefs, unlike anything we see today. It was a world of giants, a planet at the peak of its evolutionary creativity. But this vibrant ecosystem was unknowingly sitting on a ticking time bomb, deep beneath the surface. In what we now call Siberia, a colossal plume of magma was rising from the Earth's mantle. This wasn't your typical volcano. This was a flood basalt event, a planetary-scale fissure that tore the crust open for hundreds of thousands of square miles. The ground began to tremble, not with a single quake, but with a constant earth-shattering shudder. Then, the gates of hell opened. Fountains of lava, hundreds of feet high, erupted from vast cracks in the ground, stretching as far as the eye could see. This wasn't a cone-shaped mountain spewing ash. It was the planet itself, bleeding fire. A sea of molten rock, hotter than a blast furnace, spread across the land, incinerating everything in its path. Entire forests of ancient trees vanished in an instant, their carbon released into the sky. Rivers of lava flowed for thousands of miles, creating a new landscape of black, volcanic rock. The Siberian Traps, as we call them today, would eventually cover an area larger than Western Europe, burying it under miles of basalt. The initial eruptions were devastating for local life, but that was only the beginning. The real killer wasn't the lava. It was what the lava released into the atmosphere. Trillions of tons of carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and other greenhouse gases billowed into the sky, creating a thick, toxic blanket that enveloped the globe. The sun grew dim, choked by a persistent volcanic haze. Photosynthesis faltered, and plants on land and phytoplankton in the ocean began to die off, collapsing the base of the food chain. As the sulfur dioxide mixed with atmospheric water, it fell back to Earth as potent acid rain. This acid stripped the land of its nutrients, poisoning soils and turning freshwater lakes and rivers into toxic soups. The leaves of the great fern trees withered and burned, and the creatures that depended on them for food began to starve. The armored scutosaurus, once protected by its bony plates, now found its defenses useless against a world that was dissolving around it. Then came the heat. After the initial cooling from the sun-blocking aerosols, the monumental amount of CO2 in the atmosphere kicked off a runaway greenhouse effect. Global temperatures soared. On land, it became unbearably hot, turning vast swaths of Pangaea into an uninhabitable desert. But the true catastrophe was unfolding in the oceans. As the oceans warmed, they could no longer hold as much dissolved oxygen. Marine life began to suffocate. The vibrant reefs, built over millions of years, bleached and died, their skeletons crumbling to dust. Creatures that couldn't escape to cooler, deeper waters perished in the increasingly stagnant, warm shallows. The trilobites, which had survived for over 270 million years, navigating multiple, smaller extinctions, finally met their end. They suffocated in the warm, anoxic water, their era ending not with a bang, but a silent, breathless gasp. The worst was yet to come. The rising temperatures and nutrient runoff from the acid rain-ravaged land created the perfect conditions for a specific type of microbe to thrive in the oxygen-starved oceans. Sulfate-reducing bacteria, these microbes respire sulfate instead of oxygen, and as they flourished in the dead zones, they released a deadly byproduct, hydrogen sulfide gas. Imagine the smell of rotten eggs, but 1,000,000 times worse. A poison. This gas began to bubble up from the depths of the ocean, turning the water into a toxic purple brew. As it escaped into the atmosphere, it delivered the final blow. Hydrogen sulfide is incredibly lethal to most forms of life. It would have poisoned the air, killing any remaining terrestrial animals that had managed to survive the heat, starvation, and acid rain. It also would have attacked the planet's ozone layer. stripping away its protection from the sun's harmful ultraviolet radiation. Life on Earth was trapped in a feedback loop of death. Volcanoes pumped CO2, which warmed the planet. The warmth deoxygenated the oceans, which allowed hydrogen sulfide-producing bacteria to thrive. The gas they produced killed more life on land and in the sea, and further damaged the atmosphere. The world was caught in a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle of destruction. When the dust, or rather the volcanic smog, finally settled, the planet was a ghost of its former self. Up to 96% of all marine species were gone. 70% of terrestrial vertebrate species were extinct. So many insects died, it's the only known mass extinction of insects. Even the trees had been nearly wiped out, leading to a period known as the coal gap, where no coal was formed for millions of years, because the forests needed to produce it simply didn't exist. Life had been pushed to the very brink of annihilation. But here's the most chilling twist. The eruptions didn't happen all at once. The Siberian Traps erupted in pulses over a period that may have lasted for 1,000,000 years. This wasn't a single bad day for Earth. It was a 1,000,000-year-long nightmare. Generations of creatures were born into a dying world, each one facing conditions worse than the last. They fought to survive on a planet that was actively trying to erase them. The Great Dying was the closest life on our planet has ever come to being completely extinguished. It shows how a planet's own geology, its internal engine, can become the ultimate weapon of mass destruction. It reshuffled the deck of life so completely that it paved the way for a whole new era. In the desolate aftermath, a few hardy survivors emerged from their burrows. Among them were the ancestors of a new group of reptiles that would rise to dominate this new, empty world. They were the dinosaurs. The story of the Permian extinction serves as a terrifying reminder of our planet's power and fragility. It wasn't an alien invasion or a wandering star. The greatest killer in Earth's history came from within. The world burned, suffocated, and dissolved, resetting the course of evolution forever. And it proves that the most devastating threats can be the ones we never see coming, simmering just beneath our feet. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by the epic story of our planet, make sure to subscribe for more journeys into the deep past.